All of our viewers need to do is go and buy Dan's book, become an entrepreneur and become a millionaire. It's that easy. Why weren't you guys doing it to begin with? They're idiots. The viewers are idiots. They should be just being more entrepreneurial. It's as simple as that. More entrepreneurial, start a business. Listen, I come from East London, okay? My friends can't feed their kids, okay? And if it was as simple as going out and being an entrepreneur, I can bet you they would do it. I can bet you they would do it. I'm sick of multimillionaires telling kids who can't afford to turn the heating on, you just need to be more entrepreneurial. It's sick, Dan, it's sick. But this gives people mental illness. It gives people mental illness. Tell them the truth, okay? Your older generation, we took the opportunities and now it is almost impossible to get out of poverty. And don't just stand up there and wave, your millions of pounds in front of them and say, if you were entrepreneurial like me, you could do it, you could have it. Because it's sick because they can't. They can't feed their kids, Dan. They can't turn the heating on. Don't tell them to be more entrepreneurial. Fix the system that drives more and more and more of them into poverty every generation.
If you don't know who that is Gary Stevenson. He's an economist that made millions from betting against the economy. And quite recently, he's become quite popular, appearing on many podcasts and many TV shows, preaching the same message, how the economy is messed up and what we should be doing to fix it up. And in this particular video, he is debating another guy called Daniel Priestley. This guy is a serial entrepreneur, has multiple chains of businesses, and it's like, well, let's say he has some very interesting views on how the economy is doing and how we can fix it. So in this video, we're going to be looking at their views and see how they actually match up with realities that we all face. Now, let's go back to the initial video we just watched. You see, Gary hits the nail on the head, yeah? Because there is actually nothing more frustrating than wealthy entrepreneurs casually suggesting that becoming rich is as simple as just starting a business or adopting an entrepreneurial mindset. Of course, entrepreneurship is valuable, but the idea that poverty can just be solved by merely personal ambition overlooks the brutal reality that so many people in today's world are facing. And this is why Gary is outraged, because telling someone who is struggling to feed their children that the solution is simply be more entrepreneurial isn't just insensitive, it's fundamentally disconnected from reality. Which is why I tell people, be careful who you listen to. You see, these influencers, most of them are disconnected from our reality. We have people like Ramit Sethi, people like Dave Ramsey. They're all telling you to do one thing, but they are not doing it because they are living a completely different bubble. But let's take a pause. The real issue here isn't a lack of ambition or effort. It's systemic barriers like stagnant wages, rising house costs, limited access to affordable childcare, and educational inequality. You see, these structural issues severely limit upward mobility, which is why Gary's critic challenges us to focus our attention not on blaming or giving superficial advices, but on genuinely addressing and fixing the broken system. You see, the real issue here isn't a lack of ambition or effort. It's systemic barriers, stagnant wages, rising house costs, and even limited access to affordable healthcare and educational inequalities. These structural issues severely limit upward mobility. It's important to focus our attention not only on placing blames or giving superficial advice, but also genuinely addressing and fixing the broken system that's increasingly trapped ordinary people in poverty. We need real economic reforms that give everyone, not just the privileged, a fair chance at prosperity. But what actually happens when people genuinely try their hardest and still fail? Listen.
He's like, I work so hard, Gary. I work 2 jobs. My mum's sick and I'm trying to help. I'm trying to support and I don't understand why. And I'm sorry that I'm crying. But nobody ever told me that it wasn't my fault before. That's what he said to me, okay? And listen. I believe 100% aspiration, ambition, entrepreneurial spirit. I would never see a kid that has that and say, turn it off, okay? But the flip side of if you just work hard enough, you can make it, is if you didn't make it, it's because you didn't work hard enough and it's your fault. And I would like you to sit and think very hard before you send that message to young men and young women in our society.
This story actually hits deep because it reminds us of how damaging it can be when society repeatedly tells us that success comes purely from hard work. The truth is, there are so many people who are out there working tirelessly, juggling multiple jobs, taking care of sick family members, and carrying heavy emotional burdens. Hearing that someone finally realizes that it's not their fault is powerful because it lifts an enormous weight of unnecessary guilt. Gary captures perfectly how many people today feels. They are blamed for circumstances beyond their control. So here's the thing. The guy isn't dismissing the ambition of hard work. No, he's just challenging the narrative that your worth and success is tied solely on your efforts. This unintended consequence of saying anyone can make it if they work hard enough. It just kind of implies that those who haven't achieved financial success must have not tried hard enough. It creates shame, anxiety, emotional distress. So the message is clear and deeply human. Ambition is important, but compassion and honesty about systemic inequalities are equally essential. Let's encourage people, yes, but let's also be honest and supportive, acknowledging the tough reality many genuinely hardworking people face every day. Yet, is there a difference between creating wealth or merely extracting it from other people? Let's hear what Daniel has to say about this.
What's UK GDP growth at the moment?
Yeah, it's not high, right?
1%. How much did your wealth grow in the last year?
Exponentially.
Okay, so if my wealth probably grew about 20% in the last year, maybe 30. Okay, if our wealth is growing 30% and the economy is growing at 1%, where's it coming from if it's not coming from our viewers?
So I'll tell you where my wealth comes from. My wealth comes from building technology companies, and the way it works is pretty weird, which is that I invent something out of my head and I go to investors and I say to the investors, here's what we're going to create. And I give them a spreadsheet. And then they say, we'll give you a couple of $100,000 to get started, which is called seed capital. But that on paper makes me worth a couple of million, right?
Nice.
But there's nothing has been taken from anyone at this point. The investors have said, okay, we'll invest some money. Then as the business succeeds, some more investors come along and they say, we'll give you a little bit more money to keep growing it. And I'm innovating something new. And let's say investors come in and give me £1 million, and for 10% of the company, and the rest of the company is worth £9 million or $9 million, right? So I'm not stealing something from the existing economy. I'm bringing something from outside of the economy into the economy. And my quote unquote net worth is growing exponentially because investors say, we'll give you a little bit of money that values the rest of the pie at a lot of money. But
so everyone's getting richer.
In the wealth there's wealth extraction, which is what traders do. They extract from the existing economy, and they bet on the economy. And then there's wealth creation, which what entrepreneurs do. They come up with new ideas, better ways of doing things, and they build wealth.
So do you think the reason our viewers, the average Brit or American, are getting poorer is because they don't know how to create wealth?
No, the reason people are getting poorer is because economic freedoms are being eroded.
You see, this exchange captures an important distinction between wealth creation and wealth extraction. Daniel rightly points out that genuine entrepreneurship, that is, innovating new products, improving technology, and creating fresh solutions, does have immense value on the society. It can stimulate the economy, create jobs, and often introduce beneficial products and services that raise living standards. Unlike traders who merely extract wealth by profiting from existing economic transactions, true entrepreneurs contribute to economic growth, benefiting the society as a whole. However, if you look into Gary's point, really, there's something very critical there, because even genuine wealth creation isn't neutral, right? Because rapid wealth accumulation, especially when it's concentrated among a few select people, indirectly contributes to inflation. As these new wealth creators start spending money freely, prices of goods and services, especially housing, rises, disproportionately affecting those whose income haven't kept up. So while entrepreneurs may not intentionally harm the economy, unchecked inequality and stagnant wages mean that wealth gains can unintentionally worsen living conditions for many people. The key insight here isn't to discourage entrepreneurship, but to recognize the systemic impact of concentrated wealth. A healthy economy must reward both genuine innovation, but also ensure broad access to economic prosperity. See, Gary's frustration is understandable because while wealth creation is beneficial, without structural reforms like fair wages, better economic policies, and improved access to opportunities, this can widen the very inequality it seeks to resolve. Even with wealth creation, do we really have economic freedom if so many people are struggling? Take a listen.
Do you think the average US American will be rich in 3 years than they are now?
Here's what I trust. I trust economic freedom. If people have freedom, they create better decisions for their own life. There's two ways to make decisions, right? There's two ways.
Do you have freedom?
I got less freedom than I did when I arrived. Just
because my sister can't pay the rent. Is that freedom?
If you're living in a country...
She can't afford to live in the city that she was born in.
I agree. You and I agree on the problem. You keep bringing back to the problem.
I keep bringing it back to people because the people who watch... We're millionaires, okay? The people who watch us are mostly not millionaires. Is life going to get better for them?
Life will get better if you are connected to the most productive parts of the economy. If you pretend that it's 1955 and you recreate the post-war era conditions, if you try to go back to 1955, I don't think that's going to work.
If you listen closely, you would see that this exchange reveals a critical flaw in Daniel's optimistic view of economic freedom. So why the idea that freedom allows individuals to make better decisions sound appealing in theory, Gary rightfully questions, like, what does economic freedom really means if ordinary people can't afford basic necessities like rent or living in cities that they were born? True freedom isn't just about theoretical choices. It's about practical realities, affordable housing, fair wages, and opportunity accessibility to everyone. See, the reality here is powerful. If the economic system leaves so many people struggling, talking about freedom feels shallow. It's not freedom if your mom, your sister, your brother has to live in their hometown just because they can't pay the rent. It's not freedom if only the most privileged or highly connected individuals can access the best opportunities. Here's the point. Unless economic policies are structured to benefit everyone, particularly the working and middle class, freedom becomes meaningless. And the deeper point here is that economic freedom should be inclusive, providing everyone a fair chance to thrive, not just the connected or the most powerful people. Genuine freedom comes when basic necessities are attainable, allowing people to pursue their ambitions realistically. Otherwise, the idea of freedom just becomes an empty promise to those struggling to get by. So why exactly are ordinary people finding it harder and harder to get by?
Sure.
You know, and what we're talking about in many cases, you know, I was a trader, okay? And I'm worth millions of quid. And, you know, now that is just assets. I just own the assets. I own the assets. And that will grow and it will grow and it will grow and it will grow. And that will squeeze out and squeeze out and squeeze out and squeeze out our viewers. And I'll give that to my kids. They don't even need to work. They wouldn't even have to work. They could just live on. I could live off the wealth. Is that what you want?
Do you think there are any opportunities for people today? Like, if you're born into a poor family, do you think it's possible that housing being shit, and we can both agree on that, but do you think there are new opportunities that didn't exist for our parents or grandparents, but they do exist for people today?
I think the reality is, for kids from poor backgrounds, it is almost impossible to realistically get even financial security, never mind wealth.
But why do you think you could do it, I could do it, he could do it, but you don't think other people could do it?
Well, the first thing is I'm 38 now, so I'm not a kid nowadays. Listen, I won every maths competition I've ever been in, you know what I mean, since I was a little kid. I didn't even have a desk in my house, you know. I was one of the top students at LSE, and I still had to win my job by cheating in a card game. You know, that's the world that we live in. I don't think that's a very replicable strategy. And look, it's very easy for people like us who've made money to say, oh, we did it, aren't we great? Go out and, you know, you've said that you think if young people go and work in tech business, they can get financial security. If it was that easy, they'd all be doing it. You know, they're not idiots. Our viewers are not idiots.
This moment in the conversation made me pause because it reveals something powerful about how wealth actually works. See, once you own assets, right, your money essentially grows itself, whether you work or not. Think about it. You can literally sit back, do nothing, and get richer year after year. But here's the problem. Every dollar effortlessly earned by someone who is already wealthy indirectly pushes the essentials like housing further off the reach of everyone else. This passive wealth building isn't neutral. It actively squeezes hardworking people out of financial security that they do deserve, and that's something we can't afford to ignore. Yes, it's great to pursue wealth. I pursue wealth. It's great to be rich, but let's not be ignorant of the fact that while we are amassing this wealth, there are people who are suffering because of that, because we push up the price and then they also have to meet that price, even though their wages are not increasing. And another crucial point here is the myth that if I can do it, anyone can. Yes, there are success stories. People who have managed to climb out of poverty through extraordinary talent, effort, and sheer luck. But the problem is, these stories aren't common or easily replicable. Just because I succeeded under tough conditions doesn't mean everyone else can realistically do the same. Most people shouldn't have to win the economic lottery just to secure basic financial freedom. It's easy for those of us who already made money to forget how different the landscape is today for many people, including the younger generation, because it's not about ambition or hard work. There is plenty of both. People work hard a lot and people have a lot of ambition. The issue is the system itself. The bar to financial stability has risen dramatically and it's leaving too many hardworking people behind. So we shouldn't measure the fairness of our economy by exceptional stories alone. Oh, he dropped out of uni, he dropped out of Harvard and created a business and it's worth billions. No, we should measure it by whether everyone who genuinely puts in the effort has a realistic path to financial security. But maybe the issue runs deeper. Could it be that our education system itself is setting us up for failure?
They're trying. They want to find the good opportunities, and they work. Listen, they're
I'm
working
not the one
so
saying
hard.
they're idiots. You're the one who says that they can't do it anymore. I see people do it all the time. Like I'm working in entrepreneur.
People from poor backgrounds. But then why are our viewers? You think all of our? If it was that easy, why is everybody not doing it?
I'll tell you why people aren't doing it. We went through a schooling system that taught us how to get an office job.
Okay.
Right. We went through a schooling system to prepare us for a world that doesn't really exist anymore, which is the Industrial Revolution world. And you have to go through a process of figuring out how it really works. So what I see is most often the people who do really well financially who are young, they dropped out of school, they dropped out of university, they started learning how to do things by doing their own research. They start their own business or co-found a business. They take a very alternative path. None of that was taught to us at school. None of it's taught to us in normal society. We have a school system that manufactures people for a set of skills that are not particularly valuable anymore, and we also get them in debt for those skills. When people sidestep that and say, okay, I'm not going to get into university debt, I'm just going to go off and actually figure out how the world works, there's actually loads of opportunities.
This is such an important point about how our education system sets us up for failure. Think about it, right? From the moment you were in school, you were taught to follow the rules, pass tests, and aim to get a stable office job, jobs that are increasingly disappearing. They don't exist and they don't offer financial security. Our schools are literally preparing us for a world that is disappearing. Meanwhile, practical life skills like entrepreneurship, financial literacy, or creative problem-solving skills are barely mentioned, leaving us completely unprepared for the economic realities we face today. It's striking when you hear stories about this young person who succeed financially by taking unconventional paths, dropping out of school, skipping traditional university degrees, and instead learning real-world skills. They are not succeeding because they are smarter or more ambitious than everyone else. They are succeeding because they've broken free from an outdated system and discovered how the economy truly works. This tells us something crucial. Maybe it's not that young people today lack ambition. Maybe they are just trapped in an educational model designed for a different era. So if we really want to create equal opportunities and financial success for everyone, maybe it's time to rethink, and maybe it's time to reinvent the way we educate people. With all these challenges, what real advice can you actually give young people today?
If you are a young person and you're 18 years old now, and that you're listening to this, but your objective really is an individualistic one. You want to get rich and you have a great future for you and your family, like all of us have been able to do. What would your advice be to them, Gary, at this moment in time?
This is such a hard question. I know Dan's angry at me for what I put in my video, How to Get Rich. Somebody came around to my house and asked me this the other day. Obviously, I get asked it a lot because, stupidly, I'm very public about the fact that I'm rich. What I did is not replicable. It's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. People always say, why don't you teach me to trade? Like, it's hard. It's hard trading and it's dangerous. And I think a lot of young men are getting sort of sold into trading and becoming gambling addicts. Work hard. And I wouldn't even say don't become an entrepreneur. I've never ever said these things. Work hard. If you think that you have an opportunity in tech entrepreneurship, go for it. Understand it's risky. I think that sometimes this message, just become an entrepreneur and you'll make it, is a bit dangerous, because I think most people who try to become entrepreneurs fail. And I think it's super, super dangerous. The reality is, and maybe Dan won't like this, maybe you won't like this, I think it is very, very difficult for a young man or a young woman from a poor family to become rich. And I think it's increasingly hard even to just get those basics of financial security. So, listen, obviously, reduce your spending if you can. Don't buy into this like Balenciaga bullshit. Stay away from that.
This advice hits home because it's refreshingly honest. So many people online make getting rich seem so easy. Just start trading, become an entrepreneur, hustle harder, buy Bitcoin. But the truth is, most paths to wealth we hear about aren't easily replicable. Trading, entrepreneurship, investing, these things can be incredibly risky. It's not just about hard work. Luck and timing plays a huge role. For example, buying Bitcoin at $85,000 is ridiculous for someone who makes $30,000 or $40,000 a year. You know what would have been good? If they had bought Bitcoin when it was $200. That's where timing and luck comes in. Same goes with trading or entrepreneur. These things are not replicable. And let's be real, a lot of people who dive into these fields end up worse off, losing money and even spiraling into gambling habits disguised as trading. I've lost a ton in cryptocurrencies, in trading myself, before I got even wiser about investing. What really resonates here for me is the approach. Yes, ambition and hard work matters. If you genuinely see an opportunity and have a passion for entrepreneurship, go for it. But going with your eyes wide open, knowing that it's tough and most people don't succeed. The reality today is harsh. Becoming rich from scratch is harder than ever before. And even achieving basic financial security is becoming increasingly challenging for younger people. So while it's crucial to stay disciplined, avoid overspending on flashy brand and saving smartly, let's not forget the bigger picture. Real financial success isn't just about individual actions. It also requires improving the system that we all live in. And if you're starting from an even tougher situation, like a developing country, here's some advice for you.
If a young person from like Shantytown in Nigeria came to you and said, Stephen, what could I do to get rich? You would have to say to him realistically, listen, you are in a difficult situation here. You need to work really, really hard. But if you are able to make enough money to support a family, be proud of yourself.
What I would actually say to them, so yeah, I have got family in Nigeria. For people that don't know, I'm by blood half Nigerian. I would say to them that knowledge is really your life raft. So obviously there's a big tech boom happening in Nigeria, which is liberating a lot of people from that situation. So I would try and tell them to get on the life raft that is like knowledge of this new revolution. So from Nigeria, you can learn to code, and then...
This final point wraps things up powerfully because it drives home a key truth. Knowledge is the great equalizer we have. Regardless of where you come from, whether it's a small town in the UK, in the US, or a tiny town in Nigeria, the best single investment you can make in yourself is to gain skills and knowledge that aligns with future economy. And that's what I did. I'm originally from Nigeria. I came from a poor background. I didn't have any advantage, but the only thing I realized was I needed to gain knowledge. I needed to study. I needed to understand how the world works. At the time, I was still following the traditional system. I got into one of the best uni in the country, and from there, I got into Oxford University to study computer science. And from there, I started working for different companies in the UK. I worked for some of the biggest consulting firms in the UK, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte. I've worked as a consultant for the biggest financial institutions in the country. So here's the thing. It's not replicable, but one thing you can do is gain the knowledge and chart your own path. Right now, there's a huge technological revolution unfolding around the world, and it's leveling the playing field in ways we've never seen before. If you are young and feeling stuck, the smartest move is to ride this wave. Learn practical skills, right? Coding, AI, digital marketing, design, content creation. These are skills that transcend borders and traditional barriers, opening up real opportunities that weren't available even a decade ago. Of course, let's remain realistic. None of this is easy or guaranteed. But like quick fixes like gambling, disguising themselves as trading and investing in yourself through knowledge genuinely increases your odds of success. So stay curious. Stay informed, and remember that no matter how difficult your situation, the right skills can become your life raft. If you find this commentary helpful, if you find it insightful, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I break down money, financial market, and how to protect your wealth every Wednesday and Sunday so you can stay ahead no matter what the economy throws your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.